has been seen cannot be unseen.
Welcome everybody. I hope you have a pleasant but very inspiring day today and learn and exchange ideas from us and from each other.
Streets should go from space of conflict to spaces of dialogue.
What will be the assignments that we need to make better streets for all of us?
It's a bit of a kind of a strange thing that we think that we have a choice. There is no choice. We need to push back the car to kind of create space for water and green. And that creates social places which are interesting to walk, which again can accelerate and kind of increase that movement.
Have we learned the potential of transformation that we test during the pandemic, and are we having this knowledge to be shared and to be used for what we want to do in the future?
Well, looking to the past, it looks like we have a fraction from, and I like this picture very much because it shows a little bit the transition of kind of mobility modes. And if you look a long time ago, when the car was introduced in our daily life, and this is in the suburb of Amsterdam, actually in the roads near the Amstel, entering Amsterdam, you had kind of negotiation, you let the people go and through, and this space was, let's say, the car was still engaged or was some kind of crazy element in the daily life. So it had to adapt in a way to the existing space and existing uses. So looking to the future of streets, I think it's also really important to think that the streets is something that is already there for a long time, and it's changing step by step of different kind of modalities and necessities and insights how we look to this kind of urban space and how we would like to do it. And maybe in the future it could be like this, it could be in different ways. And what you see in this kind of section is that every mobility mode is changing, but also the street as a social space or an economical space is changing. And also the position of the ecological systems, as water climate changes, water lines, but also the trees. It's a really important thing that along the time we are developing new models. This transition moment is a really important element when you talk about the future design of streets.
We took away 16 meters from the cars to give back to the pedestrians, so this made 10,000 square meters. It's quite a lot of square meters. And the idea was to make a garden. We had so planned with the people. But what happened during that weekend was people came with their kids, with their bikes, very small kids with their Draisienne. They were just like doing this, you know? And they came with their rollers, and they came with all sorts of things, and they started picnicking directly on the asphalt. And we were looking, and we were like, shit. We were planning on, you know, taking away all the asphalt. And then, because of that weekend, nobody had told us, keep a little bit of asphalt, because for our kids it's fun to make some crisscrossing, or maybe we need some for the kids to draw. And it came from that moment where freely we could reinvent the space. Before even changing it, we actually saw people had uses for it. Just take first away the cars, see what happens, and we'll see. And then maybe it's actually less costly. And I'm not saying we do need space for trees, but I mean, people are inventive. They have thousands of ways of using space, and just give them the space. And yeah.
We've got the platform, decidim.barcelona, where we put all the participatory processes and where the citizens can also talk to each other and share documents and so on. And we do all different kind of sessions in the streets, also walking tours with specific groups, with women, with handicapped people, to realize about their needs. We also involved special needs. For instance, this vegetable garden was made in this position because of the wheelchairs, so they can also work. This is for the blind people. Also in tactical urbanism, we implement the podotactile pavement, so they can know where they are. And this is a special workshop with handicapped people with the new superblock street, because they hate the same level street, so because they like to know if they are at the sidewalk or, but then we teach them how it's going. We get their inputs, their improvements, and then we work all together. This was on old pavement from 19th century that we are recovering in the Superblocks project, and then we also test with the wheelchairs group to if it was smooth enough. He's the chief architect, and she's the director of transformation, so it was really testing. But they said it wasn't good enough, so they had to improve it later. And we also try to involve the teenagers and young people, because that's the most difficult part, and I think that's, as a mother of young people of 17 and 18, I know the cities are really forgetting about them, and we really should provide places for young people. And I'm finishing. The picnic tables are the most democratic element in public space, and they are heavily used by teenagers, by old people. Well, we try to get some innovation with this, Let's Protect the Schools, and that's it. And we try also to involve neurodiverse, for instance, communities, because we want a playable city. By 2030, we should be a playable city. Like Sonia said, it's not about creating playgrounds, but that all the city is playable. Okay, and we've got a huge movement called BC Boost since last year that is giving out of power to the city also, because families are claiming safe streets to cycle. So we are working with them also to see how to improve the situation.
First of all, the idea that children were playing not only with their parents, but with their grandparents, with their families. Then the families brought their friends from other parts of the city or from other cities. And so they socialized. They do something which is, well, Abel, in your hometown is easy. In Caxinas, in other places, we know on Beira-Mar and Aveiro, but in most of the cities, people don't know the neighborhoods. They don't talk with them. And so the kit was an idea to rehearse new ways of making public space to be appropriated, to reinforce the sense of belonging and community. And finally, someone, the political opponent said, well, you could go to the Green Park or to a park because this is not the place to play. And they didn't understand that we are not playing there. We're trying to make this sense of belonging, the sense of being part of a community, which is the people who live or having their life around this road or this street. So what have we learned from this? First of all, the activation in terms of citizenship, the activation of these neighborhood relations, and the idea of the common thing, the common sense, which is very important. Second, the experimentation and inclusion, which is to test the kit in other places, in other parts of the city. And also, the idea is to test solutions that could be replicated in the future with heavy and harder investment. So, 5 messages to end. First of all, the idea that streets should be spaces that should be transformed and become places. So the places that we can feel them, they are part of our life, of our daily life. The second, the idea of experimenting. Testing with very short resources can show us that it is possible to do, but can also increase and enlarge our vision for the place, and vision produced by citizens, not by politicians, not by technicians. But it's crucial to have the collective mobilization for the implementation and to ensure in a definitive way the fair transition. As you know, when you make a transition, not everyone pays the same. There are a lot of us that don't have the conditions to adapt it. So we have to think how can be more consequent and to have these future actions made possible.
In the beginning of the Superblocks project, that was by 2013, 14, 15, where we started all the participatory processes before the implementations, we used to say that we wanted to bring the village, not that we wanted to transform the area in a village. About the participatory processes, the strategy, it depends on the project and if it's a really important and long-term project. But it's like we open and close the project in several moments. But then in the end, of course, you need a technical decision. No? And for instance, sometimes some neighbors, they don't want benches in their streets because they consider that benches are bringing teenagers. So what should we do? No, it's like, it's also sometimes participatory processes doesn't, of course, don't mean that you need to take into account all the observations, because sometimes they are not aligned, no, with what the city is looking for. But of course, yeah, we try to, and also we create specific groups, no? For instance, with the retailers, with the Superblocks project, we've got a specific meetings for each street, no, for with them, no, to also to gather all their needs about the freight deliveries and so on. So it's like really taking into account not the small details, but then also the big details.
We know that in all metropolitan regions, public transport is really in crisis because of this individual mobility. All e-bikers, e-scooters, everything is actually the business model of those is taking the money from public transport. So how do we combine these challenges with these nice neighborhoods and the social acceptability in a way that we get the complete picture of this challenge?
The street needs to create value, not only for the people who are walking through it, but also for the functions along it, for the shops, for the different economic functions along the street. They need to be able to use that street as part of their business so that the city also is activated by these functions in the city. And by layering all these 10 dimensions, we are able to, again, give identity to streets. Because at the moment, when we design them based on mobility restrictions and mobility dimensions, all the streets, they look pretty much the same. We always start from the middle, then we kind of make a road, we make the parking lots, we make the cycling roads, we make pedestrian zones. So they're all kind of similarly designed, and to a certain extent, they also result in very generic streetscapes in every city. By connecting all these different levels, we are able to make very site-specific designs for every street, so that they again have culture, they have a cultural character.
It's a generic street. So what's your opinion about that? Because somehow we're continuously seeing those images on, and at the end, we all want to have this beautiful cafe with like foam pictures, like all these things, and we all are eager for those kind of streets, but they are not really the reality of our cities.
In Switzerland, at least, our approach is no marble, no big things which are costly, because we know if we do these big things, you also mentioned that if you do 3 or 4 big things, they are always in the center of something, and they are always extreme costly. And also, strangely, they are never really in the poorest neighborhoods. They're always in neighborhoods where people have a bit of money to go around. And I think that's fundamentally non-inclusive. You're quite right.
Why I find it so important that these are manuals, because there are too many cities that are building green icons in indeed the richest parts of the city just to show off. And then the argumentation is that it's to convince people that it's necessary. We are far beyond that. We really need to kind of connect every single project that we are doing to the goals and to the challenges that we are facing at the moment. And I think that's what we are trying to show in these images, that you can also do that, but that it also gives something to the people who are living in the street.
This highway collapsed in 1975. And I met the engineer who closed the highway at the time. He's still active today. He's called Sam Schwartz. He's very well known in New York. And he told me, we can't understand. We have less traffic, of course, because we don't have 110 1,000 cars a day, we've got 50,000 cars a day, but this traffic doesn't relocate on other roads. And in fact, we have a loss of cars and a loss of people. And so what's that phenomenon? It was one of the first time that you could measure this phenomenon of traffic evaporation. When you close a highway, part of the traffic completely disappears because people change their habits and do their business differently. And so after a lot of discussion, a few conflicts, a few cases, the New York City decided to take over the question of this highway, which was a state highway, and the New York City built this avenue along the Manhattan west side, and it works quite well. It's still got a lot of traffic, like about the same levels of traffic as the Meridiana that Sylvia showed you, about 80,000 cars a day in this area. But you have about 5,000, or you had 5,000 bikes a day. I think now you have far more. And you have lots of other uses. People can cross very easily the road, and they can it gets access to this fabulous waterfront. And so nobody would like to have the highway again here. I would say that these highways are already, as they are, barriers to sustainable development. And we want them to become allies in the sustainable development of our cities. And the transformation is what I say transformative. It doesn't just transform where it happens, it's also transform the way people use the city, the way people use their car, of course, and people are encouraged to change their behavior when the situation, the condition changes. I mean, it's really simple. It's offer and demand. If there's less offer, that reduces the demand. And the conditions that this requires is really, well, trying to work together and avoid silo thinking, because I hear that here in Portugal, we heard this morning that there's a lot of sectorial thinking, and people who build highways don't often interrelate with people who are working on the master plans. And we really need to bring everything together, including social aspects and ecological aspects. And of course, for politicians, it's a real risk to reduce the number of lanes on a highway and to start transforming them. But in all the cases I've been through, the politicians were re-elected afterwards. So I think you can also have a lot of benefit politically out of it. If there are any elected officials around in the audience, we can talk about this.
So it's clear why these things have to happen. There is all kind of funding and programs, let's say, already written down. The UN Sustainable Development Goals, they are translated in urban agendas. There are cities or regions in our network who also translated that in a sort of local or regional urban agenda, which is really interesting. I can recommend, let's say, the Basque Country, who has done that. It's a really fantastic document, and they are now working on delivering what's in that document. And let's say it's, of course, all about health. It's about spatial clean air, noise, social aspects, etc. Or everything that has been mentioned today, and also Paul showed that, I think, very well. It's hard to get there. That's what we all know. We have all our habits. We have the lobbying of the established industries. I think Barcelona also explained that, the car industries, political processes, funding, blah, blah, blah. Lots of reasons not to do it and to go out for dinner and forget about it. But, of course, we need to simply act on this. And that's maybe something, I would not go into this too much, but that's something I really was a bit shocked, actually, when we were yesterday in Braga, and you enter the office of the Jim Cavado, the intermunicipal collaboration. You enter the office, you open the door, and there's 5 people or something. They have to deliver this. They have to deliver everything that we are talking about. And then you think, hey, this something is not good now. Because we think, and that's of course why I'm also representing this network, we think that we need to do these things on a sort of metropolitan or regional level. You can't do it on your own. And to be honest, with all these fantastic examples of closing roads, so small roads, let's say, and let's say have all kind of activities going on there, that's of course to make people aware that things can be different than now, that indeed you can live without cars in your street. But in the end, I'm really absolutely convinced that we also need authorities to deliver this.
Public spaces are the platform wherein urban life, social life is happening. And there's a lot of complexity and challenges in our society, how to do that. That means in planning, designing, engineering, uses, economy, culture, whatever kind of sustainable innovation, technology challenge we have, and of course, social interaction. That network together, it's important, it's worldwide to redesign this platform in a specific way on the right moments.